Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us today for the launch of our social amplification platform. It's great to have you all here and we're so excited to get into it and show you the power and potential this tool has to elevate your influencer marketing. Before we jump into it, I'd like to cover some quick housekeeping points. So this session will be running for about 20 minutes today and it is being recorded and will be available to watch on demand once the session is over. So really easily shared with any colleagues who aren't able to attend today. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask these in the chat function and we'll be sure to get in touch with you following the session to answer those that we don't cover today in more detail. So with housekeeping out of the way, we'd like to introduce to you our new social amplification platform by explaining the story behind developing it, the challenges it confronts, and a demo of the platform to really take you through its key capabilities. We hope this introduction will give you an understanding of what it could do for you and for your influencer activity. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Anna, our Director of Creative and Display, and Max, our Director of Innovation and New Services here at Incubeta. So Max, where did the initial concept for this tool come from and how has it developed into the tool that it is today?
Brilliant, thanks Elizabeth. I think I'd start just by explaining our approach to the value of influencer. You know, more and more our clients are asking us about influencer marketing and adding it to their marketing mix. The value of the influencer marketing is truly undeniable. Brands are spending countless hours, endless ad spend, trying to establish that level of trust with their clients, just to get to that point where they can start to purchase. So influencer gives a really great opportunity for clients to skip that step and get straight to leveraging the trusted and engaged audiences of their influencer partners to begin selling them products and services straight off the bat. And that's reflected in the industry growth. Industry numbers look set to continue to grow throughout the years and into next year as well, despite the impact that COVID's had on the industry. With travel halting across the globe and various other sectors being hit by the pandemic, we're still somehow seeing influencer continue to grow, and that reflects the value that it's providing at the minute. However, given its rapid growth, influencer is yet to really be put under the same scrutiny as other growth channels have been before it. A recent study by the Influencer Marketing Hub found that 90% of people are really happy with the performance that is being driven by influencer campaigns, but only about 2/3 of them are actually making any efforts to evaluate the ROI of their campaigns. So already there is a bit of a disconnect here compared to other channels. So brands are really trying to work out what is the true incremental value of their influencer marketing and the general social marketing. And increasingly we're getting asked these three questions. How do I measure the value of it properly? You know, we find that people who try and look at it on a affiliate basis, on a click basis, or using voucher codes, aren't necessarily getting the full impact. And those using more broad metrics and brand-based metrics like EMV are finding they're often inaccurate, often flawed, and there isn't necessarily a great amount of data that goes into a lot of those calculations. Brands are struggling to align it with their other areas of media. You know, influencer is run very separately to everything else they do, and there's very little alignment. They're not measured in the same by the same measure of truth, the main source of truth, often not through GA or Adobe or whatever your platform is, and is run completely independently from your other channels. So people want to better align it with everything else that they're doing. And the third thing is, how do they improve performance over time? Advertisers are really struggling to make any learnings and general improvements to campaigns as they go on, based purely on the fact that, you know, they don't always own the full delivery of campaigns. You're reliant on these influencer partners to carry out a lot of the campaigns for you. So how can you really implement that test and learn strategy when you don't have great data, you're not properly measuring it, and you don't have the complete ownership? And the answer to those three questions for us is this social amplification, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today. So the initial question most people ask us is, what actually is it? And to answer that, you know, it's technology, it's measurement, and it's analytics help you make the most out of your organic, social, and influencer content. So you can see some examples here where we've taken organic social content or influencer content and created a template which will allow us to take it out of the walled gardens of certain social platforms and allow us to leverage it around the web through programmatic display. By doing this, we're able to increase the reach, increase the measurement, and get a lot more learnings. And I'll just give you a bit more detail on that here. So by taking the content out, firstly, you're limited when you're working in the influencer space, an organic social space, by your audience of your platforms, your partners' platforms. So by taking it out and amplifying it across the web, you have the opportunity to really connect with a wider audience, increasing the reach, increasing the amount of data comes through, and a very cost-efficient manner, much cheaper than boosting on Facebook or Instagram. The second point is you can optimize to core KPIs. By taking it out of the influencer space, you can actually start applying Google audiences and traditional audiences you would leverage within and strategies within programmatic display. Often implementing things like contextual targeting, allowing you to increase the relevancy of your posts even more than just seeing them in feed like you would do on Facebook and Instagram. And finally, the opportunity for measurement and insight is so much stronger. By taking it out of these platforms and using display, you can actually start to look at things like post view and implementing incrementality tests and audience splitting and data splitting to allow you to gather far more information about the platform. So with that being said, I would love to introduce Anna, who's going to give us a bit more insight into how the platform works, why it's so great, and really excited for her to give you a run through of that. So over to you, Anna.
Thank you. I will just share my screen so that we can jump straight into the platform and show you how it works. So there are two main areas of the platform that I'm going to show you today. The first handles the creation of the ads themselves, and the second handles the associated media targeting. So ads are created here under the Manage Posts section. To pull in the content, it is as simple as pasting a link to the post you want to use. So let's pick a brand we all know to demonstrate this. Let's say Sainsbury's want to drive more traffic to their recipes site. We can see that they have a lot of great content on their Instagram page. So all we need to do is to select a post, copy the URL, and paste it in here for the platform to download and cache the content. Once the post has been pulled through, there are various customization options available. First, you can define the period you want to run the post for by specifying a start and/or an end date. You might use this if, for instance, your post is promoting a sale that will only run for a certain amount of time, or if you are otherwise responding to external events. In this case, the post is clearly referencing Easter, so let's run it from today until the evening before Easter. The second section allows you to customize the call to action. You can select the text you want to use and style the button. So let's set this to a nice direct view recipe, and of course we'll use the Sainsbury's orange. We then want to set the URL which users will be directed to if they click on this call to action, and we can deep link right through to the recipe page. This tick box below allows you to decide whether you want users interacting with the post content itself to be directed to the relevant social pages, or just straight through to your website. If the box is checked, clicking on any handles or hashtags will behave just as they do in the platform. Then finally, you can set your reaction thresholds. The number of likes and comments will update as long as your post is active, but you may prefer not to show these while they are below a certain level. For example, if I remove the comment threshold here, you can see that this post is still fairly new and only has 7 comments. Alternatively, you can choose never to show the engagement metrics if you prefer. Once the post has been saved, it will show up in the list of available posts. From here, you can see a summary of the settings we just configured and edit them if you need to. And you can deactivate the post, which will prevent it from serving across any campaigns it may have been assigned to. In order to activate the post within our live campaign, we then need to go to the media campaign setup page up here. So here you can see the campaign structure we've set up. This is largely configured pre-campaign in the DSP, and the media team will work closely with you to ensure that the base targeting and optimization being applied aligns with your goals. All campaign segments except for the default campaign, which handles fallbacks, are fully bespoke. So in this example, we have a few different campaigns, each of which is targeting its audience through a mixture of behavioral and contextual signals. We can now choose to which of these campaigns we want to apply the post we just added. And in this case, it's fairly obviously the home cooks audience. We can see that this campaign is currently running with 1 post assigned, which we can see here. To add our new post, we click on the pencil to bring up the campaign configuration window. Here we have a list of all active posts and can filter by page to help us find the post that we want. We then click Assign to assign it to the campaign. At this point, we have a few additional options. First, we can set the weighting of the post. This determines how often each post is shown relative to the others assigned to the campaign. Because this is a much newer post, we may want to upweight it, but keep the other posts live so we can test any differences in performance. So if I set the weighting of the new post to 67%, it will serve twice as often as the older post. We can then assign post-specific keywords to ensure that it will show alongside the most relevant content. To do this, we just click here and either assign from a list of keywords already used in the campaign, or we can enter our own. We can preview the post at any point if we want to review the content. Once we are happy with the setup, we can simply close the window and the changes made will be synced across to the DSP, and the post will be live within a maximum of 2 hours. We are, of course, always working on updating and adding new features to the tool. In the near future, we are planning to add features that allow for additional customization of the posts to tailor content for each creative format and provide more control over testing variants. And of course, we're always open to hearing what you would find useful too. As well as showing you how the platform itself works, I also want to bring to life the value it can bring to your campaigns by showing some example analysis. Of course, what this looks like will vary from campaign to campaign, depending on vertical KPIs and so on, but hopefully this will give you some idea of how we use social amplification to go beyond simply extending campaign reach. The example I've chosen here is a campaign we ran for a large UK retailer, where it formed part of a full funnel influencer strategy. But before diving into the analysis, I first want to explain a few key elements of the setup. First of all, you will see 3 terms used across the reporting: native, boosting, and amplification. Native refers to the organic content posted by the influencers on their own pages, boosting to in-platform paid boosting of these posts, and of course amplification is then the programmatic activity that we've described. In order to perform this analysis, we needed to ensure that we were tracking as many touchpoints as possible. So we placed click trackers on all of the in-platform posts that we could, which enabled us to track any subsequent sales. For example, while it is not possible to place links on Instagram in-feed content, tracking can be applied to swipe up links and stories. Full impression tracking is automatically applied to amplification campaigns with view-through attribution, but because the end goal was to attribute a realistic return on investment, it was essential that we considered the incremental value to avoid grossly overestimating the revenue. So we ran a conversion lift experiment over the course of the campaign, and the numbers you'll see in the reporting factored this in everywhere except where explicitly stated. Assessing incrementality of the organic campaigns is trickier, but we included information about the sale, such as whether the buyer was a new customer and whether they had bought the product mentioned in the post, to give us an indication of the likely influence. So with the foundations established, let's jump into the analysis. So this report shows performance by channel and by campaign, and also by post, and is based purely on the numbers directly recorded by our tracking. The most important metrics are the incremental revenue, showing the total revenue attributed to each line, taking into account the incremental conversion rate established by the conversion lift test, and a proportion of it respectively driven by clicks, by new customers, and by hero products, that is, the products that were actually featured in the posts. Immediately we can see the value provided by the amplification portion of the campaign. It increased the reach of paid activity by a factor of 5 at a significantly lower CPM than the paid activity in platform. We can also see that it significantly outperforms the other 2 channels in terms of CPA, even when looking only at click-attributed sales. In fact, we can compare the performance across all these key metrics, and this serves to highlight the relative strengths of each part of the campaign. While reach of the native campaigns is inherently limited, we can see how much stronger engagement rates are compared to boosting. Engagements for amplification are defined a bit differently, so we don't get a like-for-like comparison here. Meanwhile, boosting expands the reach at a fairly high CPM, but drives direct traffic to site relatively efficiently, and amplification cost-effectively reaches and converts a wide audience. Another indicator of the roles of each channel can be seen when comparing the number of sales from new customers and the number of sales of the products in the posts. Both of these can serve as indicators of incrementality, i.e. how likely was it that the customer made the purchase because they saw the post, but they also tell us about how customers interact differently with the same post in different environments. In this case, we saw that native campaigns drove far fewer sales from new customers than either of the paid channels. This demonstrates that there is strong overlap between the influencers' audiences and the advertisers, highlighting the relevance that the influencer activity can achieve. This is further indicated by the fact that a much higher proportion of the sales driven by the native campaigns were of the products featured in the ad, which again reflects really well on the strength of the influencers' relationships with their audiences. However, it also shows the value of the content they create. Not only does it inspire their own followers to purchase the promoted item, It also serves well to generate more general brand awareness, which can attract brand new customers to site when shown to a broader audience, which is what amplification allows you to do. Looking at the data at campaign and post level also surfaces interesting insights, where data from the amplification strand gives greater context to the performance of native campaigns and helps us better understand the drivers of success. For example, we can see that menswear campaigns show consistently higher levels of engagement than the equivalent womenswear campaigns, but across all channels a much lower propensity to convert. However, what we can see from the amplification campaigns is that the relative incrementality of menswear posts is much higher. This means that instead of concluding that menswear campaigns are less effective because engagement doesn't translate into sales, and perhaps as a result reducing the investment, we can instead see that the reverse is true. Men may be overall less inclined to purchase, but the influencer content actually plays a greater role in engaging and converting them than it does for women. Similarly, we can re-examine some of the assumptions we may have made about individual influencers in the absence of sales data. A great example of this is Letitia, whose low native engagement rate may have hidden the fact that she drove by far and away the most sales. And because we are tracking the products bought, the fact that 2/3 of those sales were of hero products means that we can be reasonably confident of her direct influence on them. The final piece of the puzzle was to take all of this insight and convert it into an overall assessment of the impact and return of the influencer campaign as a whole. We did this by looking at the relationship between views, engagement, and sales on the amplification ads to estimate the number of sales influenced by the posts in their social environments that could not be tracked, and factored in the relative incrementality of each campaign. This gave us an estimated ROI of between 1 and 1.5. Given that the advertiser had previously considered the influencer campaign to be purely focused on awareness, it was great to be able to demonstrate a provable incremental revenue return. And this was without considering the inherent value of the content itself, or any sales driven from the use of the content across the advertiser's own channels. So I hope that helped to demonstrate some of the opportunities available through social amplification, and perhaps sparked some ideas of your own for how it could be used. And with that, I'll hand back to Elizabeth to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was really insightful, and it was great to see how the platform works. I actually have a quick question before we wrap up the session today. So what kind of clients does the social amplification platform work for?
I mean, to be honest, it works for, or it can work for any client, provided you have a strong social media presence. So that's either your own organic social media or working with influencers. You can make it work. It's all about taking what you're already doing and amplifying it. So it's really effective for pretty much anyone.
Amazing. That sounds great. Thank you. So we hope this has given you a glimpse of what you could achieve with our social amplification offering. And I know some of you might be asking yourselves, what are the next steps? So we'd love to set up a one-to-one meeting with you to chat about your specific aims and how we can leverage the platform to answer these challenges. So to get one of these sessions in the diary, please reach out to us using my email, which is on the screen now, esutton@incubeta.com. But we'll also be sure to follow up with all of this information after the event today. Finally, thanks so much for attending today's session, and we hope to hear from you soon.